Welcome. The show is What's Going On. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez, here on LaGuardia Web Radio, WLGR. And my guests today are Dr. Abderrazak Belkharaz Idrisi, Chair of the Math, Engineering, and Computer Science Department, Dr. Maria Intezari, Chair of the Department of Natural Science, and Eric Hoffman, Assistant Dean for Academic Affairs and the Director of the Center for Teaching and Learning. And they're on to discuss LaGuardia's receipt of a recent $4.6 million Title III grant to promote science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM education via the creation of a STEM Academy with Queens College. All right, that was a mouthful, wasn't it, folks?
You are muted.
Thank you. Sorry. Chris reminded me too. Too many things going on at once, too many buttons to press. So I told my guests before the show that I would give them an opportunity to introduce themselves, a little bit about their background studies before coming to LaGuardia. So who would like to go first?
Well, I would go first.
And by the way, we're gonna, for the purposes of my skills with pronunciation, we're gonna affectionately refer to you as Abdel for the show. Is that all right? Dr.
Thank you, Hugo. I think you did. I think you did quite well pronouncing my name. That's always kind of has been a challenge for many people to pronounce my name. So you did great. Well, Hugo, thanks for having us today at your show. Many thanks to your listeners who have made the effort to join us today as well. I just have to apologize in advance that I will have to leave the show around 1:30 due to health reasons. So I have to run to my doctor. So I would like to apologize for any inconvenience. So I just want to.
And we're going to give you we're going to give you more airtime in the beginning, Abdel, so that you can, when you leave, you'll feel like, you participated.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, like you said, all my colleagues refer to me as Abdel. I was born and raised in the city Casablanca in Morocco, and I immigrated to the United States in 1998, and I joined LaGuardia Community College as assistant professor in 2004. And in 2013, I became the chairperson of the Mathematics, Engineering, and Computer Science Department. I hold a master's degree of engineering, as well as PhD of engineering. Most of my PhD research, is around application of control theory to airplanes and missiles. So that's pretty much what's brief introduction of who I am, where I come from, and my research background.
And by the way, I started the show with Schoolhouse Rock. Zero is my hero, and I was thinking of you at the time because zero isn't. I mean, I don't know if people appreciate this, but as a concept, is very important, and we owe the Arab world for that. Is that not the case? I know your favorite number, your favorite irrational number is pi, because we have the Pi Festival once a year through the mathematics, math, engineering, and computer science department. But how do you feel about zero as a number?
Well, I'm aware that the show is only 1 hour.
So you can let it go.
I can tell you this. There are so many fascinating numbers. In fact, each number should have special day per year, just to do that. We do give a lot of light and fame to pi, but there are many fabulous numbers. One of them is zero, obviously, and the number E. There are so many numbers out there that deserve probably more attention than just pi. And zero is certainly one.
I read a whole book on zero. That's why I tried to make it our common reader at one point, but I was outvoted, so it was too bad. Okay, Dr. Intezari, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much, Hugo, for inviting us and giving us this opportunity. I came to US in 2003 when I was a PhD student. My home country is Iran. So I was a PhD student over there, but then I came here with my family and I did my thesis at Queens College in the biology department. And then I came back and I defended my thesis in Iran and I got my degree. And again, I came back here and I did my postdoc at North Shore Hospital and also St. John's University. And then I got hired at LaGuardia in 2008. Yeah, my PhD is in biological sciences, but my research interest is about the toxicology and molecular biology, cell biology, especially for the field of neurobiology. I work on microglial cells a lot. And then when I became a faculty at LaGuardia, then I started to do some pedagogical researches as well in my classes, which I really like it. Besides of research that I'm doing in the science, it's very interesting. And then since 2019, I became the chair of the Natural Sciences Department.
And I will say, I did consider using Science Rocks, The Human Machine, which was all about biology, but the music wasn't as good. I'm sorry, so I had to make a call there.
Okay.
Dean Hoffman, would you like to introduce yourself? Talk a little bit about your background, your studies.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Hugo. And echoing what Marie and Abdel said, thanks for having us on the show to talk about this really cool project. I grew up in Michigan and made my way to Georgetown in DC for a master's program where I studied composition. Taught for a couple of years and then really had a great opportunity to work with my mentor from grad school to help start a Center for Teaching and Learning at Georgetown. And we were involved in a lot of projects then. There was a national project that actually connected me to LaGuardia. So I actually came up and visited LaGuardia in 2001, 2002 as part of the Visible Knowledge Project that several humanities, American studies faculty were working on. I actually then moved up to New York in 2004 and worked in the central office. I was working in the College Now program centrally, supporting the colleges, and did that work for a long time before taking a job here in 2016 as the director for the Center for Teaching and Learning. I started a doctoral program in education a few years ago, and I'm really looking at community college, faculty careers in community colleges, and the relationship between educational development or professional development, the work that happens in the classroom, how we support that, and its role in faculty learning as they make their way along the reappointment, tenure, and promotion pathway.
Yeah, you interviewed me for your dissertation, and how was that? What was it like being the interviewer of someone like me?
I think as a interviewing is for a qualitative methodology. It's a tough thing, but I've learned a lot, and it's really important, I think, to get faculty voices to understand your experiences versus what we as administrators might project onto you. So I think it's a really great project, and I'm looking forward to finishing that up, I hope by this spring.
Very good. Typically, I would go into here talking about the things you all do at the college, and but because Abdel does have to leave a little early, maybe we should just get right into the grant itself. And so why don't we do that? And let's start by talking about like what was the genesis of this? How did how did it all begin? As far as who founded or who began the conversation to apply for this? Anybody like to? Abdel, I'm trying to get you some airtime before you have to go. You want to say anything about this? You're muted now. Your turn. Now we're even.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I will try to answer the genesis question. I was, we were thinking about this for quite some time. I mean, I think, as you can imagine, LaGuardia has gotten quite big grants and has developed and scaled massive projects, right? Such Avanzar, STEM Connect, Connexion, the Correct models, the OER, and this has resulted in massive results as well. So, for example, I want to mention just one. We have been certified as the third most STEM graduating school in CUNY, right? And we come right after City College and City Tech, and they are both 4-year technical schools. So to come right after them, it's been quite an astonishing achievement that has been, culmination of this all work from the Avanzar, from the STEM Connect, from Connexion, from many grants that we've gotten over the years. And in some ways, we could say that we have become the preferred STEM option for community college students. So when students comes to CUNY to choose a community college from CUNY, we pretty much have become the choice number one for them. So for the past 5, 6, 7 years, we consistently increased the STEM enrollment at LaGuardia. At least to mention in my department, our enrollment in STEM has nearly doubled in the past 5, 6 years. And we consistently have been increasing graduation as well in STEM. So, so this has pushed Paul to think about this fascinating idea. It's really him. He called me.
Dr. Arcario, as the rest of us call him, right?
Yes. Dr.
Provost,
yes.
the provost.
All right. The provost really suggested that this is time to take all this work a step further and really think about designing a STEM academy. And this idea has been encouraged by the excitement that has been shown to this idea from Queen's College as well. And so from there, a group of people have been called to table from LaGuardia, from Queen's College, and we've discussed the idea, we've discussed the big lines that we should put in the grant proposal, or who's going to be responsible for what, and this project has evolved from that. It was really a nice team effort. So, so that's how it has all began, I guess, and I think the STEM Academy will just take us a step further into our STEM experience.
Yeah, it's funny because I asked this question to the president when he was on the show early on. I said, like, why do we produce so many STEM graduates? And really, I should have given him a lifeline and had him call you, because you did a really good job answering the question. But part of that, obvious, again, this is the aspect of faculty, institutional memory. Whereas administrators may come and go, we tend to stick around and we remember things. And, this show is part of that as well, institutional memory. Is there anything that, Eric or Maria, would you like to add some of the things that Abdel mentioned as far as the genesis of the grant itself?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize what Abdel mentioned about a great teamwork that we did regarding that, because at that time I remember that our department also wanted to submit a grant proposal for a STEM opportunity from NSF. But then when I talked to Paul, to Dr. Arcario about that.
No, we can call him Paul from this point on. I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
everybody knew who we were talking about.
Yeah. So he said that maybe it's better to put all of our efforts together from MEC department and Natural Sciences department together, and then have that conversation with Queens College. And he had that idea. So yeah, it was a great teamwork.
Why? Can I ask the question? Why Queens? Why did we choose Queens College? Does anybody answer that?
So at least for our department, most of our students in biology and environmental science, they transfer to Queens College. And for our environmental science and biology, we were working on articulation agreements with them as well. And also, the new president of Queens College was very interested in having this collaboration with LaGuardia. And I think Eric can add to it more.
Yeah, no, thanks, Maria and Abdel, for the piggybacking on that. Some of the grants, the STEM Connect grant that Abdel mentioned was under the same funding category, HSI STEM. This is in Title III, and we partnered with City Tech and York College on that, I think primarily because of some of the challenges, some institutional challenges with working with former administrators maybe, and folks at Queens College. This grant just capitalizes on what we've learned from all of the work that the faculty and the chairs have been doing over these 5 years for STEM Connect, and is connecting it to, like Maria said, the institution, the four-year college where most of our STEM grads end up going. So we have been looking at data there as a part of this, and we took a lot of what we learned and just tweaked it a little bit and added some new things that they've been doing in the departments.
And when I was reading this, the introduction, it says Title III. So could you, just for the sake of...
This is all part of like the Higher Ed Act, the Education Act out of Congress. So they have these different, there's Title III, there's Title V. This one actually has funding source that comes through Title III. Most of our HSI work is through Title V grants like Conexion that Abdel mentioned earlier. So it's just the funding stream from the feds and how we get it.
Okay, because I thought I mentioned something about it didn't have anything to do with our HSI status or anything like that, right? No, Title III has nothing to do with Hispanic serving institutions or anything.
This is an HSI STEM grant, though, funded under Title III.
Oh, okay. So I thought I did read that. I did read that.
That's the grant category. Yep. The
grant category. So, and for fun, obviously we've got plenty of folks who write grants all the time, but I'd be fascinated about the mechanics of that process. So, I mean, did you guys get into a room, talking about how you were going to do this, or what did that look like as far as the writing of the grant?
I don't know. Eric, you want to start?
Abdel, you got to leave though. Abdel, I'm trying to get you some airtime here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the way we always kind of put to Title V grants, in general, but for more specifically for this one, our department, I remember, developed a grant proposal to create a pipeline between high schools and us. And the grant proposal was developed by Doctors Nathan Osana and Ala Darabse and group of engineering faculty as well. And we've submitted that to NSF. And we've got, over 2 years, we've got really nice reviews, very good reviews, and we are going to submit it again this year. Well, actually, this year we decided not to, due to kind of lack of time and everything else. So basically, what we did, Paul said, you have great portions from that proposal that fits into the academy model. So can we, so we take a piece of that, and then Maria was involved with other, sent another piece, and then Queens College, I presume, Eric can confirm that, sent other pieces, and then Eric led the process of gluing it all together, and then giving it one voice and making it into one one voice proposal for both institutions.
Is that what happened, Eric?
Yeah, and there were faculty in Maria's department as well who shared some of the resources and grant language that they had put together for some grants, some that they received, some that they were working on, and then there was existing things. I mean, because this was essentially saying we've been doing this work, but with these other two institutions, we could take a lot of the previous grant. And then I think the part that why LaGuardia has been so successful in getting so many of these, it's just updating the research behind the program design that you're putting in place. So, you have to stay current. You have to look at most effective practices, what we're learning now from when we wrote that last grant 6 years ago. So it's really, I think what Abdel says, then you just start stitching it all together and try to make it sound coherent to an audience of readers who are probably looking at, a few dozen of these in a very short time, trying to score them and mark them up.
Maria, who are the faculty in your department, natural science, who are putting the grants together? Who's some of the folks on your team?
So the team that we put our ideas together, and for example, one of the projects that we are doing now in our department is about learning community cohort model that we started since 2020. And so the faculty leaders are Dr. Richa Gupta and Claudette Davis. And then we have Dr. Fuentes, who is working on that as well. So that was the main thing. And then Dr. Holly Porter Morgan also, because they had another NSF grant and they did some activities in that. They also she also provided some of the ideas of that grant. And then we had an initial meeting with our biology program director, Dr. Onerato, that we also came up with some of the ideas from there as well. So yeah, these are the faculty who basically put the idea together for to provide Eric with these ideas. But as Abdel said, yeah, Eric led the writing the whole proposal by putting all these things together.
Yeah, and we've got about 3 minutes before the break, so I want to give Abdel a chance. Any last things you want to say, because you won't be with us in the second half hour.
Well, I'm just to your point, we get into one rule. I remember when developing the Avanza. Back then, Brett Einan, we were in one room and we were putting those ideas together and we were developing them together, and we will be in the room again and again, and then once we have everything in place, then the writing process and the stitching process begins. So I just want to say one thing, before I leave. Obviously, my colleagues, Maria and Eric, are very well informed about this project and will explain what we're trying to achieve, which is basically graduate more minority students. We, via multiple projects. Eric and Maria will explain them, in details after the break. I just want to say that we keep getting these projects because we have accumulated a great deal of experience and expertise as an institution in leading and scaling really big projects. It's like an amazing, and sometimes it feels, at least to me, that sometimes we take that almost for granted. We can only be where we are and establish such history of innovation and grant development and big project scaling because we have extremely dedicated people at our college. And I really mean it. I mean, they, talk about faculty, staff, administrators. I mean, I know exactly what I'm talking about, and I know CUNY very well. And we are really at LaGuardia, we are very lucky to have such dedicated people working for LaGuardia. This is really something we should be reminding ourselves as leader about that, because as a leader, you can have all kind of ideas and you can have all kind of innovative ideas. If you don't have dedicated people who believe in that, who can stand behind that and take those ideas, improve them, enhance them, turning them into even bigger ideas, nothing will go nowhere. And I can speak, and I know this is the case for the entire college, but I can speak specifically for my department that I oversee and I run every day. And I know what I'm talking about. And to have such wonderful, dedicated people is really an asset that we should always remind ourselves and be thankful for. I just really want to throw that out there.
And I want to thank you for being on our show today. It's 1:30, and I want to take a little station break. And by the way, the hammering you hear is my wife, who has decided to renovate our bedroom on a Monday for whatever reasons. And so the show is What's Going On. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez. And today my guests are Dr. Abderrazak Belkharaz Idrisi, the chair of the Math, Engineering, and Computer Science Department, who has to go now and will not be here for the second half of the show. Dr. Maria Entazari, who's the chair of the Department of Natural Science, and Eric Hoffman, who is the Assistant Dean for Academic Affairs and the Director of the Center for Teaching and Learning. And we're talking about the receipt of a $4.6 million Title III grant to promote science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM, education via the creation of a STEM academy with Queens College. And as Abdel alluded to, we can now go into the part of the show where we really talk about, okay, so you got $4.2 million. What are we doing with it, or what are you doing with it as leaders on this grant? Are these questions? By the way, I wanted to put an analogy together when Abdel was talking. And Abdel's still here. I don't understand.
Yeah. So I can go.
You can go. Bye, Abdel.
I can go
later.
right?
I was going to see this.
Thank you.
I've
Bye,
been
guys.
watching these.
Good luck, Abdel, with your doctor.
Yeah, good luck today.
Thank you. Bye.
I was watching that thing on Disney Plus, the Beatles Get Back, and watching their creative process. So when we were talking about writing the grant, I was thinking about that. How most of it is, I don't know if you've watched it, but most of it, they're all just sitting there in the room being bored. And, but you see how the album was a product of, their entire careers, bringing songs back that they had pre-written, how they built these things together, working together. So those kinds of things interest me, and maybe that's why I asked that question. But let's talk about the actual rolling out of the grant and how it's done. The spending, $4.2 million. Dr. Hoffman, soon to be Dr. Hoffman. You want to talk about that? Well, I tell my wife to guide.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think part of it is, with three of us just kind of coordinating in this part. The first step is that we were notified of this grant very late in the game. Our semester had already started. And that wasn't really the goal for the department, but it's kind of the way that a lot of these things happen. So Abdel, Maria, Paul, and I, we've been meeting. We've had some meetings, Paul and I, with some of the leadership over at Queens College. And we're trying, I think Abdel sort of alluded to this, to map out the different parts of the grant which things will start now. So I want to go on record to say, I think we're not starting the whole grant right now. We're kind of piloting different aspects of it this year because of the late start date for it. What we really want to make sure what we do is secure the articulation agreements for this joint degree programs, the first 3 that we're going to start with Queens College. I think 2 of those are pretty close to being finalized, and there's just one more when there's a curricular point that I know some of the folks in the computer science department are going to work on. And then we're going to kind of advertise this to students, really, for trying to roll that whole piece of it out for next fall. To Maria's point about the learning communities work that they've been doing, that's kind of what we're piloting right now with biology students. And then we're going to pull in other components of it over really the next 6 months or so we can hit the ground next fall with this STEM Academy, the Queen's STEM Academy in place. Other parts of it, because it is a transfer program with Queens College, they will then build up over the couple of years that we have our first cohort. So it won't be until year 3, starting now, where we will have deeper work with Queens, helping support our students who transfer there, and hiring our alumni who are at Queens as transfer peer mentors, for example, to help. Our faculty will be working with Queens faculty around research components that we'll build out for a summer research component. There's a group in Maria's department. I've spoken most with Dr. Radhakrishnan about a USDA grant that they have around research and ways that they're funding that. So we're going to use some of these existing models. And I think that's probably the piece that I would keep on emphasizing here. It's like Abdel said before he had to log off. This work, we get these grants because we've been doing this work and scaling this work and being successful at doing this. So I think we are fortuitous. There was a fortuitous piece here that we hadn't been doing this work already with Queens College, and there's now an environment and relationships there to start rolling it out. So a lot of planning up front. And as Maria said, she's got the kind of pilot for the learning communities that we're going to base this on.
A couple of questions before I turn it over to Maria. When you say advertise to students, who and where are those students at, and how are you going to advertise it?
So one of the things that we wrote in and kind of connecting to one of the grants, like that NSF grant that Abdel was talking about, we want to connect to high schools. Hugo, you're familiar with the College Now program, obviously, here, and the work that you've been doing in that. So we'll work with the pre-college programs, with Tylea and her team, to connect not only to LaGuardia students who are in our College Now program, but College Now students across Queens who are interested in STEM. So we've got to do an outreach, and to let the sort of advertising is to let students know that, similar to the Justice Academy and the relationship that we have with John Jay, this will be this dual degree program that students who are entering here will, and if they follow kind of the guidelines and the things that we put in place to support them, if they're successful at completing their associates, they would then transfer to Queens College. So we want them to know that that is going to be part of an agreement that we're working out with Queens College.
I mean, in this case, it sounds like, College Now students, we know this. These kids know what they're doing. They know where they're going. And a lot of times community colleges are not their destination. Obviously, this throws something else into the mix, which is, the relationship with Queens College. But I've always felt that, we've already got our foot in the building, so to speak. And so a lot of times it's like, if I don't get the College Now kids, I want their friends. I'm thinking about this in terms of humanities. I've written my own grant with Dr. Powell Doctor, to try to beef up enrollment in the humanities. And, that's the thing, because we've got all these students who are at the high school. College Now is usually only a small percentage of that group. But in the case of STEM, obviously you're going to need students who are performing well at least in mathematics, right, in order for them to succeed. But I wanted to give Maria a chance to talk about, I mean, LaGuardia has a long history with learning communities, or clusters, we used to call them. How is this the same kind of model, or what's the makeup of the learning communities you're talking about?
Yeah, the learning community, yes, we have a very long history in offering clustered, paired courses for our learning community efforts. But this model is unique because we are trying to provide these clusters for students, especially for their first year when they are at LaGuardia. The cohort of these students, they move together for the first semester and also the second semester. And for these learning community, we are going to implement some of the extracurricular activities which are related to the students, improving students' skills, which they need for biology and environmental science majors. So the um, the specific things that it's about this learning community is that the same students take these courses for their first semester and then second semester, and throughout these we just advise them through the guided pathways. We map out everything clearly for them during this first year, because the first year study showed that the first year is very important for students, especially in community colleges such as LaGuardia. Students are commuters, and sometimes they don't feel that sense of belonging to school or even to STEM majors. But having this community, this making cohort for these students, we believe that we can keep them on track, and also we can advise them and increase the sense of belonging for these students by having this model, this unique model of learning community.
And we know that this is one of the things about learning communities is that students build relationships with other students, and we found that when you do have friends in college, your chances of graduating are higher.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to stick it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's some of the data we learned over that decades of doing this kind of work. And is this one of the concerns about STEM? Are we obviously it's tough, right? Math is tough. I know, like the last math class I ever took. Well, wait a minute. In high school, the last math class I ever took was geometry, and flunked out of it for reasons that I can't explain it on the air at this time. But and then when I took math in college, it was only to be able to pass a test that would allow me to go on to, my junior year, which was a fabulous class, by the way. A great teacher, and almost made me want to change my major back to math. But for most students, math is tough, right? Math is, I think, what's the numbers we used to when we had what was it? When students had to take remedial courses, right? The numbers were in the 80s, right? Of as far as students coming in who needed some sort of remediation in mathematics, and the numbers of those coming out of that were not high. I think 60% wouldn't make it or something like that were the numbers, as I remember when we were doing Achieve the Dream years ago. So is this something that the grant has to address as well, which is how hard it is to succeed in the sciences, in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics?
Yeah, of course, definitely we are going to address that as well. As I mentioned, through having the same theme for each learning communities that we offer for students in the first semester and second semester, and also some of the co-curricular and extracurricular activities that we want to implement in that. The very precise and robust advising also is something that we are going to do with these cohorts. And also taking care of the mental health of our students are also is a part of this grant, and which is great, and we support these students with counselors, and we support them even for their personal issues that they have. And so they get with having this model, they get lots of supports from their instructors, from faculty, from staff, and also from their peers.
All right. We're moving almost into the last quarter hour. And by the way, I'm watching the Twitch stream. There is no, from what I can tell, any questions. Mostly, I believe, because with Twitch, you have to become a member to actually ask a question. But Dr. Ritchie will let me know otherwise. So we are free to use this time to what we talk about, which is the future. So, obviously are we completely in the future stage, or are you already starting to make plans for? I mean, right now we're in the winter of 2021. So the future would technically be spring 2022, but I don't know if you're already thinking about what's going to be happening in the fall. What's the future look like right now for the grant and the work you're doing?
I think one of the things I just want to, as I jump into that, Hugo mentioned that for our students especially, and when we understand their experiences when they transfer, I hope that the work that we do with Queens College helps reinforce some of the supports that students need when they get to the transfer institution. I think that, in CUNY especially, so many students transfer, and sometimes folks at those institutions don't consider the kinds of needs that transfer students would have when they join. So one of the things that I think is really cool about this design is that so the folks who are in the academy, part of the learning communities, their first summer after they complete their first 2 semesters, will be working with Queens College for them to take a Queens College course that is part of this articulation, and we'll have tutoring to help support them as well. But within that work and through research, we want to create venues for our faculty and Queens faculty to meet and talk together about those kinds of supports, what they're seeing about our students in the classroom, and sort of the direction, like going in 2 directions, like what do we bring back to the LaGuardia classroom and conversations, and what is Queens College going to be doing on their end as well. So I just want to have that piece out there, because I think that this, you're aware of this, you're in this tiered university system. There's a lot of, like, the fact that we weren't working with Queens College in the initial grant 5 years ago, we want to make sure that we're creating these supportive transfer spaces. So when our students get there, which often happens, by the way, for community college students, they're not turning back to us and saying, we're not getting the same kind of support. We want to make sure that we get that in place as well. So that is a huge part of this. And I think that we've got the leadership at Queens College at the departmental level, but also at the leadership level to help support that. So that's a long-term outcome. That's way in the future, but that's the piece I'm really looking forward to, starting those conversations and figuring out what those classes should be.
But this is a fundamental issue, which our students deal with all the time. Is they transfer, they don't get the same support in the 4-year institutions. Whether they get an orientation into what the new experience is going to be like, that's always questionable. what's accepted, what's not accepted as far as credits. Even though we have pathways, it's not a locked thing. So it's an important piece, and something that, I mean, I wish we were doing in all our majors, because I mean it's great that we can get the money to do it for STEM, and it's important in STEM because of the difficulties for students. But if we could do it for all, that would really help the university out a great deal in its success, particularly with transfer students to the four-year colleges. Maria, is there anything you're thinking about or getting ready to do in the future for your piece of the grant?
Yeah, for the future, we also want to look at the other initiatives that we can add to this model. And as you mentioned, that this is going to be a very good model for us to continue for even other programs that we have throughout the college. But one of the things that we are thinking is more collaboration with four-year colleges and transfer schools, because as you said, it's very important for our students. And the other thing that we would like to implement also is developing some work-based curriculum in our majors for our programs, because that's very important as well. And besides of supporting our students by advising and providing these kind of supports, but we need to really prepare them for the workforce, and we give them those skills that they need for their future careers. So therefore, I think that we need a little bit to think about that as well. And with this design also, because we are going to implement some of the aspects of having internship or doing research, that would be something that definitely we need to do it for all science programs.
Well, and is this, obviously that this is the president's one of the things that the president has put on the table, which is community colleges preparing students for the workforce. But of course, in STEM, which interestingly enough is much like the arts, is that, there's not a lot you can do with a 2-year degree, and possibly not even a 4-year degree or even a master's. That most of these folks, you got to get the PhD. The terminal degree, obviously, in the arts is a master's of fine arts for now, though there are DFAs. But in the sciences, everybody's going for the PhD. So when you're talking about the work, are you talking about soft skills? Are you talking about like learning to work with others, or are you talking about? Yes. Are you talking about like physically putting them in labs, working as research assistants with folks to see what that's like? What are we talking about?
Yes, all these things. They need to improve their soft skills. They need to have some experiences in technology, because these days they need it a lot. And also placing them in some kind of internships and work places would be very important as well. So besides of having this collaboration with four-year colleges, I think in future we need to establish more collaboration with employers and organizations as well.
Okay. We've got about 5 minutes left, and so I want to give you the opportunity for anything you feel we haven't touched on, anybody would like to thank before we finish up the show. Either one of you. Unless you want to keep talking about the future. We can talk about my marriage, which is not going to be doing so well after I had to tell my wife that, to remind her, I do a radio show from 1 to 2 o'clock. But there'll be plenty of time for that. So what would you like, anybody you'd like to thank?
Yeah, I would like, first of all, thank you so much for inviting us to talk about this project. And also, I wanted to thank Dr. Arcario to encourage us to put together our ideas. And also, I would like to thank Eric for writing this grant and moving forward with this proposal. And as Abdel mentioned, I would like to thank our faculty and staff as well, because without their help, we cannot do anything. So they are very dedicated and to what they're doing. So I would like to thank all of them. And thank you so much for having this teamwork. We made a very great team together, and I'm very thankful for that. Thank you.
Before you say any thank yous there, uh, Assistant Dean Hoffman, we do have a question from Python MC76, and the question is, how many students are you planning to serve with this grant, and the projected increase in STEM recruitment and graduation? Sounds like a funder. Do you want to answer that one real quickly?
I think through the outreach, we said that we would, contact through peer advisors, through orientation, working with student affairs, working with enrollment teams, up to 10,000 students over the life of this grant, and then increasing our enrollment. We've increased it with our last grant to over 4,000 students, enrolled at one time in STEM, and we're looking at about a 10% increase. With that, it'll add to the enrollment for the college overall, and I think it's like Abdel said earlier, making sure that more students are aware of LaGuardia as a place to start for STEM. And then we have really, with these kinds of grants, there are, I think, 15 indicators that we're looking to improve, from retention to students with GPAs in good standing over and over. A couple of the challenges that we know and we've learned from these grants, a lot of STEM students change their majors. They start as STEM and they'll change their majors. So this is a big piece of it, is, we saw that we were graduating students, but they weren't necessarily keeping their majors. And when they were transferring in these other institutions, they weren't necessarily staying in those majors. So that's a big piece. And yeah, it's just, there's a lot we have to show over this time, but outreach to 10,000 students is where we're starting. We don't have to do it all at one time. And then in each of these categories, one of the things that we didn't mention was this virtual interest groups. It's something that the provost had worked on, making sure that there are, to Maria's point, places where students are speaking with each other, speaking with faculty at LaGuardia and Queens at the same time, and then having the peer mentors who are supporting them.
Well, I think we're out of time. So I just want to thank the both of you for being on the show. The show is What's Going On. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez, here on LaGuardia Web Radio, WLGR. And today, my show has been with Dr. Abdurazak Belkharaz Idrisi, chair of the Math, Engineering, and Computer Science Department, who had to leave early. But still with me are Dr. Maria Intezari, chair of the Department of Natural Science, and Eric Hoffman, Assistant Dean of Academic Affairs and Director of the Center for Teaching and Learning. And we've been talking about the receipt of a $4.6 million Title III grant to promote science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM, via the creation of the STEM Academy with Queens College. I want to thank you both for being on the show today. It's important work you're doing. And after we edit out some of the domestic issues, I think you'll have a nice little show. And I wanted to thank everybody for watching, for listening. And Mr. Pope, back there, why don't you take us out the way we started, this time with the number 8.
Thanks, Hugo.
Thank you.